This is me and Sally. We're back again to continue our sessions into developing an end-to-end ASP.NET Core API in all different aspects. That includes, acceptance tests, unit tests, Core API profile, build project, and provision project. And in the last session, Sally and I, finished up the better part of a provisioning cloud component. So we went out there and we said, we're gonna develop the storage brokers for provisioning SQL Server, doing web apps in here, all that kind of stuff. Actually, before I go that far, I think some people left us a couple of comments in our last video. Let's take a quick look, Sally, and see. I don't know YouTube these days, just for the people watching us, YouTube these days, deletes things, deletes certain videos without my consent. So they're basically going and saying we suspect that the comment is a so I see it in the I see Yasser's comment in here, but I don't see it on the video itself, which is crazy. Thanks for the new video provision with region defined. Define thrice. Yeah, I think I get what he's trying to say. I think Yasser's question is all about, you define the region 3 times. Just like I said before, so just Sally, just so you know, so I defined a region here and I defined the region once again in here, and then I defined it again somewhere here, I think, right? So what people are saying, you defined this multiple times. What's this all about? Like I said, this is a simple core application, but it's the foundation that you can use to basically scale out or scale up as you need to. Scale out meaning that you basically spread across multiple regions. Scale up meaning that you get to beef up your existing server and basically make it bigger and better in terms of processing power and compute power. So ideally, this would be a configuration just like everything else. So you remember how we went and said, I want to set up my storage and I'm setting up this admin access and all that. We can do the exact same thing with the regioning, if needed be. Because this is a simple API, there is no need for it, but it's kind of giving you the kind of flexibility to go and be able to control that long term. By the way, just so you guys understand, this is not even like region in here is basically what's the type of this guy. It's just I think it's a struct, if not a class. It's a class with a bunch of values that come out of it, and this is just a bunch of static values that are there that you can basically use and extract the value out of it. That's really that all that it is. And I think that's a pretty smart idea. I would use structs for that, but that's basically what this is. It allows you to kind of select the region in a human readable language because some of these regions are very hard to read. This is North Central US, so it'll take you a second there instead of just saying US North Central. It's a little bit more readable. And I appreciate people that put that kind of time and effort to make sure that their software is readable for humans. Okay, so we talked about that, Sally. We need a couple of other things. We need a loggings broker just to kind of log events. So I'm going to go here and do loggings. Loggings. And the logging broker this time is a little bit different. It's not that your typical logging broker that, we used to talk about in terms of going and calling a logging broker the way you think. This one is a lot simpler than that because it's not really connecting with anything. It's just, I just want it to print something on the screen. So we're just going to create a simple interface in here. I'm going to say I logging broker. And this logging broker is just a simple public interface. And all it does, it has something called log activity. Activity. And I'm just putting a message in here. That's all that it does. It's not doing much. Remember, this is an infrastructure project. It's not, does it really need tests? That'd be super meta to write unit tests for provisioning projects. It's kind of weird, but if someone wants to go to that extent, all power to them. So this is another logging broker in here. And this logging broker is public as well. And it extends or implements iLogging broker. Been playing with Scala for a while, so I'm starting to speak things like extend instead of implement. But it'll rub off real quick. It'll go away real quick. So okay, so there's this logging broker, and we want this to be able to kind of log activities. All it really does is it just prints out, it calls in console, write line, the system application, I'll just write a line for me for out of the message that comes in. So when my system is running, it'll show me what that would look like, when I provision my system. Very sweet and simple, no problem there. Okay, so that's the logging broker. Let's go here and say brokers, logging, implement, log, or logging broker, or implement logging broker. Okay. That guy is done. What else do I need here in terms of brokers? I need one last thing in here, which is really important, which is the configurations broker. And this configurations broker is the most important one because through the configurations that we're going to add into that system, it's going to help us define, like, remember how I said when you run your application, let's say your web app, for instance, it needs a web app name, right? Where's this name is going to come from? It's going to come from a configuration, right? And we want to read that configuration and we want to be able to process it. But before we write this configuration broker, we need a configuration model, something something that we can basically retrieve and be able to kind of work with, in terms of provisioning and deprovisioning. Because this project here, Sally, it's not just going to help us, create resources. It's also going to help us, deprovision resources, like bring these resources down,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes you need, remember when I was telling you, if I'm doing a quick demo, I want to be able to go and say, I want to create resources for the cloud, for just a quick demo, and then I'm going to kick off another pull request to bring that infrastructure down again. So it's
Yeah.
all governed by code in C sharp. So in order for that to happen, let's go into the models here and let's go create this guy and let's go configurations, right? And under configurations, I'm going to create two models. The first model here is called cloud management configuration. And this cloud management configuration basically asking me for simple things. Like I can go here and say, what is the project name? What's the name of the project? And then in here, there is something that will be called cloud action, right? And I'm going to call this up. Up meaning you create a resource. And in here, I'm going to do cloud action again. I'm going to call this down. Down. That basically means take down these resources. Destroy these resources, bring them down. Okay, cool. Control KE, clean, clean. Let's see here. E. Okay, cleaned up. So what is this cloud action? I need another file in here. I'm going to call cloud action. And this cloud action is just another model. And this model will basically describe, certain details about what I want to bring up and down. It'll just, all it does really, it has just a list of environment. And it'll tell me provision in like what environments you want to destroy and what environments you want to build up. Because there's multiple environments, right? You can have, let me just stop there for a second and explain that one to you so you understand. When engineers build systems, right, software, um, for the better part of building software, there's a lot of environments that get spun up so you can experiment and test the work that you're doing.
Mhm.
Okay. And engineers in the software industry, engineers, they do there's all kinds of different schools of thought when it comes to provisioning environments, right? So if you're working with, a large scale application, they basically create a div environment and then they create a UAT environment, and then they create a prod environment like this, prod. Then I've also seen in some enterprises where people do things like, okay, let's have all of these div UAT, they would call it QA environment, and then they would have another environment in here called staging environment like this, right? So what are these environments and what's the point of them? Every environment targets a particular group of people that will be able to kind of certify the application. So let's say Sally and I are sitting here. Here's Sally and here's Hassan. We're sitting here and we're writing software. Let's throw this away for a sec. And you and I are writing software, right? So we went in there and we said, okay, here's our software. It's ready to be deployed. Let's deploy it to the dev environment. The dev environment is for engineers on the team to verify that their stuff is working. That's the first stage. Dev is for engineers to go and say, let's deploy all our code, let's deploy this API or this website into a development environment so we can hash out all the bugs once it's deployed. Okay. Once the engineers think, oh, this looks really good. So then here, this is here targeting the group of engineers. So this is you and I just sitting here. So this here is, oh, this here is a for engineers. So once that's done, engineers will certify this and say, yeah, we tried it in our div environment and it's good. They authorize a deployment into UAT environment. UAT stands for, I think, user acceptance or something like that. What that basically means is that you're either a focus group or your business group, right? A business group will go in and say, let's see if these features are actually working the way we expect them to. So they go and they run that UAT environment and they see if this stuff is working properly as expected. UAT also applies mainly to what we call quality assurance engineers. Go in, they say, oh, let's check out and let's validate. The quality assurance engineers, they can't touch this environment because this is where engineers, this is what I call the dumpster fire. Engineers trying things, things are burning, they're trying to make sure things are working. It's all over the place. Okay. So once the quality assurance engineers say this is good, then the engineers authorize this to go into production. Who's using the production environment, Sally?
Client.
The client, your end user, exactly. That's what this guy is. So this here would be your end user or your client. This is when we say it's publicly available. Okay. Now, there's a little bit of nuances to this. Like, for instance, if you have a large application, let's say Facebook, for instance, Facebook has an app. They don't just deploy to prod, they do something called gradual deployment. What does that mean? Prod itself is not just one environment. It's many environments based on the region, and I'll show you what that means. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but just hear me out. It's really important for you to know some of these things. So what does that mean? It basically means that you're going like this. They're deploying across from UAT across multiple prod environments, and each one of them targets a particular region. So this is Australia, for instance, right? And then maybe they try a little bit with maybe let's say India. And then once India is confirmed, they roll out to Europe, right? And the Middle East. And then lastly, they deploy in the United States. Why do they do that? This is called a deployment strategy or DevOps. Why are they doing that? Because sometimes there's a bug that you don't know about that you wouldn't be able to figure out until it goes public. Like even your quality assurance engineers or your business won't be able to catch that one, right? So they go deploy, it's called gradual deployment, carefully into regions that are low risks, right? So, let's go and deploy into a smaller country, maybe Singapore or something, where we have 3,000 users and see how they operate. If they find out that there's a problem, they cancel all that rollout and they roll back into UAT and Div and they say, let's figure out this problem before it spreads around the world. But this is massive scare, multi-billion user systems, something a little bit ahead to talk about at this moment in time. Right now, just know that there is something called prod environment. And this prod environment basically, there's some certain end user and these end users will be able to use your system. The beautiful thing about software is one word, scale. Scale. When you do scaling, you understand, you start realizing that, with scalability, you start seeing how amazing software can be super elastic and can extend and shrink based on the amount of users that you have. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine today, and I said to him, the beautiful thing about scale is that you get to be really powerful when you need to, and then you get to kind of minimize your costs when you don't need to. After the development on a particular project is done, some people say we don't need this div environment anymore, or we don't need this UAT environment anymore. So just shut it down. They completely shut down the environment because there is no active development on the project anymore. This also happens sometimes. right? And when this happens, you'll be able to do that through code, through this provisioning project that I just talked to you about.
I see.
So up meaning I want to create the environment, down meaning, take down that environment. Cool. That's what that basically means. And then the rest of that is that they'll tell me the project name, tell me the environments that you have and all that. So, okay, so we have this configuration. Then the second thing is that I want to be able to read these configuration from a app settings, some configuration file that I can control, right? How does that work, Sally? Let's go up in here back again into the brokers. And let's build something called configuration broker. So I'm going to type here configurations. And let's go down here and say I configuration broker. So here's this guy. I configuration broker. Okay, and this configuration broker basically is the guy that's going to go read the data for us from an app settings file and then brings it back to us, into our system so we can provision and build our systems. Okay, and all of that gets committed, including the settings, because that's how you control what gets built into your environment and what doesn't. Okay. What do I need to do here to be able to do this? Obviously, I want a broker that will allow me to get the configurations for me. So I'm just going to go here and say cloud management configuration. What is this cloud management configurations, Ali? That's the model that we just created, right? That tells me the project name and all that kind of stuff. Let's get configurations like this. And then I'm going to go create a simple class here that's called configuration broker. And this guy is public and it implements an I configuration broker. And then it needs to implement that function for me. Okay, so you see the pattern here. Let's see why this guy's mad. Get configurations, inconsistent accessibility.
Why is that
Consistent.
part?
Huh?
Why this time you didn't put partial like other broker?
Because I'm not planning to create anything underneath it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything underneath it. What is this clown talking about? Hold on. The cloud management. Oh, maybe the model itself is not declared public. Yeah, there you go. Makes sense. I'm the clown here. I'm the one who made the mistake. Okay, perfect. So this guy should be happy. And then let's go back here. So this is this guy. So we need to be able to read from a file that's on the system, and this file will help us kind of know where, where to read our configurations. I'm gonna go here and add a new file here, just a little tiny file, new item, and that file will be called app settings. App settings. Let's see, settings. Just a very simple JSON file. Let's see here, JSON. Oh, are you gonna make me write it by hand? That really sucks. Let's see, JSON configuration file. I guess that work. Okay, here you go. And then I'm gonna say app settings. JSON. Just a simple file like this, right? What would be inside that file? We would put some information about our project, like project name, right? And then we can go here and say the name of my project is Sophie, like this, core API. Okay, so that's the name of the project. And then I can go here and say up, I want to provision environments. What environments I want? Well, I guess for my situation here, since we're still developing this, we just care about development environments. Let's call it div, like this. And what do I want to take down? Nothing. There's nothing to take down here. So I'm just going to go here and say down environments like this. And it's just an empty array because I'm not taking down anything yet. Okay. So, so this is the app sync, but I want to be able to read this guy from my broker here. So how are we going to do that? We need to implement a thing that would allow us to read our data from that configuration file, right? Let's go ahead and do that. It's really simple. You just go up in here and you say, this is my I configuration root. That's your configuration root like this. And then you go and say configuration builder. This will require us to pull some extensions, Microsoft extensions. Here it is. Here you go. Okay, and then underneath this guy, I'm basically saying set base path. And the base path is basically the path of your project that you're in right now. Okay, let's pull here. I think I'm missing a dependency or something. Just a second. This is configuration builder. Let's see what it had. Uh, I think at some point in time here, I need to configuration builder, set root path, just out of this. Yeah, it should be something like set base path, something like that. What did I pull? Microsoft extensions configuration. That should be the right one, I think. It's been a while. Uh, let's see. Some things might have changed with the .NET 6. We have this build guy, which is the one that we eventually gonna need, right? But I also want to tell it where I can get my data from. Does it still have add JSON file? Oh wow, things have changed a lot. Okay. Let's see. I configuration, dispose. Okay, let's go and see. Let's see here, Sally. We need to pull these configurations from somewhere, and I think, the .NET team changed the API on us again. So let's go back here. Let's find out. So configuration, builder, base file, say base path. Let's see here what we got. Config file extensions. Config Microsoft extensions configure. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, so we need just an additional library in here, something called file extensions. Okay, perfect. Let's do that. So here is Sophie Core. Let's go into NuGet packages. There we go. And let's just go and say Microsoft extensions, file configurations, file extensions right here. Just an additional NuGet package that we're gonna need. Okay, and now I can go here and say set base path. There it is. Great. See? So this is base path right here. That would be directory, get current directory. So I want to know where my project directory is so I can find this app settings file. So I can read the configurations. And then I'm gonna add the JSON file. And I think that is also another extension. Let's go back here, manage configurations. And I think it might even suggest that. Yeah, there it is. We need to add the JSON file that will basically help us kind of pull that file in. So this is the add JSON file. It should be happy now. Yeah, there it is. And then I can go here and say path like this. And then what did we call our file? App settings.json, right? And it's not optional, so that should that to false. I don't think we have to put that option anyway, but that's that. The last thing, I'm just gonna go back here and say configuration root.get like this or something. And then, sorry, yep. And then I want to go and say cloud management configuration like this, like this. Okay, I think I might be also still missing one configuration here. Let's see, Sally. So the last thing I'm missing here might be the binder. That's right. I was wondering why the NuGet package manager is asking me to add the binder, but there it is. So there's just a bunch of libraries. There are extensions, meaning that you won't see them in your, which is kind of a death trap for a lot of engineers because if they read the code, they don't know what's needed unless they go look at the solution. But here we go. This is the tricky part, and this happens once per project, so it's a very rare activity. So I'm sorry there if I don't know much of it off the top of my head. App settings.json, this guy will go in and pick up whatever is in here and map it into this strongly typed model. So this strongly typed model would be this cloud configuration. It picks up the project name, what environment it needs to spin up, and what environments it needs to spin down. That's all. See? So that's basically how we're going to pull these configurations down, from an app settings file. So let's visualize this real quick, Sally, so you just understand. What we're doing here, my friend, is that so you have this so you have this configuration file. This is your app settings. What does the app settings give us, Sally? What does it tell us about? Yeah.
So the name, the configuration,
Yep.
the
What environments we want to spin up and what environments we want to destroy, right? That's the app settings file. So assume that this is your system. Your system is going and calling this app settings file. Do it this way. This is an app settings file, and this is the cloud. And we have this other guy that we called the logging broker. So remember how we built Cloud Broker and we built Logging Broker and we built Configurations Broker, right? These are the three brokers that we built in here. So what are we doing here? What we're basically going to be doing is that we're going to orchestrate this a little bit or process this a little bit. What we're going to be doing is that we're going to go and say some service in here is going to go call this guy to get the configuration and then call this guy to build the cloud system and then call this guy to basically log all the activities on that system. Does that make sense? So this is why we need that configuration. So we can change the project name. We can do whatever we want, wherever we want easily without any issues, through the processing. Okay, friend? Good deal?
Mhm. Yeah. So is that the same as like, in the building the provision project? So we had like program and then processing service, foundation service, and then
Yep,
broker. So
yep,
this processing is referred to that one?
yep, exactly. So literally what we're gonna do is that we're gonna have three services in here. And
Mm-hmm.
these three services, we're gonna be building something called in here, something like this. Is gonna be called cloud or provision service. That's a foundation service. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're gonna have in here provision processing service like this.
Okay.
So this guy is gonna call this guy, and this guy is gonna call all these three guys to be able to kind of get that data that it needs. And then at the very end, the entry point is your program CS.
Yeah.
So not like the controllers in an API. Now your exposer is program CS, a console basically. And the console kicks this off and runs the entire program for you. So right now we're done with this, and this. We done the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow we finish these three together.
That would be awesome.
Cool. Does that sound like a plan? So that's
Yeah.
the provision project. It takes a little bit of time to wrap the head around if you're not familiar with the system, but this is a great opportunity. See all what we done here, everything is written in C sharp. I didn't switch over to anything yet, or I actually won't. All I'm doing here is just I'm going and saying I want to be able to, and before I forget this, let me just set up the configuration here to say always copy this file. Always copy this file. When I do a build or anything, always give me a copy of this file because that's how I'm gonna be able to see this file when I build my project. Sounds good? Does that sound like a plan?
Okay. So I didn't get like why always you want to get a copy?
I get a copy, so when I run the application, it ships this, like when I go and build this system like this in the folder where
Mm-hmm.
it spits out all the binaries, I can see the file. Like if I go into, let me show you. If I go into Open File Explorer and go into bin, let me show you here. So here's my File Explorer. Here's bin. Here is debug. .NET 6. Here is, let's see here. Where is our file? Here it is. Do you see app settings? It copied it over. Some people say you don't need to do copy always. You can always do copy if new. That's fine with me too. But that's basically where we stand. This is the configurations. So we have the logging broker that will tell us about the activity. We have the configuration broker that will tell us what we need to build. And then we have the cloud system itself. You'll notice that everything here will have its own kind of way of being processed in terms of the naming convention and all that. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, let's commit this first. Let's go here and say brokers, right? And then here implement configuration. Now, for those who are following us on social media and following our videos, you guys can very easily go and see the our progress. I put a draft pull request there so you guys can see it. If you go into Sophie Core, you'll find a draft pull request there that is showing you all the progress that we're doing for this provision project. So these are all the files that we've changed, all the stuff that we built together so far, about 22 files, and you'll be able to see through the commit history, 7 commits, 7 days, basically going from initializing the project all the way down, initialize cloud broker all the way down to configuration broker. Sounds good, Sally? Cool, cool
Yes.
beans. All right, let's connect again tomorrow. Talk to you later. Thank you, friend.
Have a good
Take
one.
care.
Bye.
Yep, take care. Bye.